Have you ever loved someone so deeply you would willingly give up a piece of your very soul for them? This is the story of Yuna, a 900-year-old fox spirit who dared to shed her ancient form for the sake of a human heart. And it is the story of Haru, the mortal scholar who, without ever knowing it, captured the devotion of a being older than the forest itself. Theirs was a love that bloomed in borrowed time, a fragile beauty destined for a tragic end. For when a shadow from her mystical past stretches its fingers into their mortal life, Yuna will be forced to face an impossible, soul-rending choice, testing the limits of their devotion and leaving behind a legacy of heartbreak etched in starlight and memory. In the ancient forests of Mino Province, travelers spoke of phantom lanterns and laughter like silver bells. This was the domain of Yuna, a magnificent nine-tailed Kitsune. Her fur was the color of fresh fallen snow, her eyes holding the golden wisdom of ages. By her 900th spring, her magic was a force of nature. She could conjure ethereal foxfire and slip between the spirit and human realms as easily as crossing a doorstep. Yet for all her power, a profound boredom had settled upon her immortal heart. She had seen empires rise and fall like seasons. Wandering invisibly through bustling human markets, she watched young lovers share secret smiles, their fleeting, intense lives burning like brilliant sparks in the vastness of her own endless existence. A deep longing began to stir within her, a question that echoed in her forest den. What did it feel like to be truly seen? Not feared or worshipped, but simply seen. One evening, that restless curiosity won. With a quiet resolve, she willed her 9 snowy tails to vanish, tucking their energy into a borrowed kimono. She softened the ancient glint of her eyes into a warm, human smile, and walked out of the forest into the village of Edo-era. No longer a spirit of immense power, but a woman with ancient eyes alight with a dangerous hope. That same night, a torrential storm broke over the province. Haru, a traveling scholar, arrived at Edo-era's only inn, drenched and weary. A humble teacher by day, his true passion was mapping the stars. The innkeeper greeted him with a regretful bow. Every room was full. As Haru prepared to sleep outside, a soft voice cut through the rain. "He can share my roof." Haru turned to see Yuna, framed in the inn's warm glow. He saw only a gentle woman with captivating eyes. Bowing deeply, he accepted her offer. They sat together as the storm raged, talking for hours about poetry, loneliness, and the sound of foxes in the forest. By dawn, the storm had passed, and Haru left for the schoolhouse, unaware of the 9 phantom tails curled in the shadows of the room. The days that followed wove their lives together. Every evening, Haru would return to find Yuna waiting. He spoke of his day, and she listened as if his words were a story she had waited centuries to open. She learned his habits, the way he'd scratch his head when deep in thought. Love, she realized, wasn't a grand spell. It was a quiet accumulation of shared moments, until one's own life became inextricably tangled with another's. Village life was governed by custom, and soon whispers followed the unmarried pair. One evening, under the stars he loved to chart, a hopeful Haru asked Yuna to be his wife. An ancient warning twisted within her. The most sacred law of the Kitsune forbade revealing their true form to a mortal. The punishment was absolute: exile from the spirit world. Yet the thought of losing this fragile human warmth felt infinitely worse than any celestial decree. The life she had with him was a single warm flame against the cold ocean of her immortal loneliness. she would not let it be extinguished. She said yes. They were married at the local Inari shrine, a bitter irony beneath the stone fox statues guarding its gates. For the first time in 900 years, Yuna was lost in the simple joy of the present moment. Months blossomed into quiet happiness. Haru's students whispered that his wife must be a sorceress. She always knew when a storm would break or when the beans were about to burn. Yuna would gracefully blame her intuition on lucky guesses, her heart hammering. Each morning, she performed a secret ritual, checking her reflection in a water basin, half expecting to see a fox staring back. Each dawn, seeing a human woman, the relief and guilt braided themselves ever tighter. Autumn arrived, and with it, the Bon festival to honor ancestral spirits. The village gathered by the river at dusk, releasing paper lanterns to float downstream. As Haru and Yuna released their lantern, a sudden gust of wind snuffed out its candle. In that dying flicker, her reflection on the water's black surface transformed. For a horrifying split second, she saw not her face, but the visage of a fox with golden eyes and 9 spectral tails. She gasped, but it was too late. Haru had seen it. It wasn't a clear image, but it was enough to plant a chilling seed of doubt. That night, he lay awake, listening to her breathing, a sound that once brought comfort but now seemed alien. Childhood warnings about trickster foxes echoed in his mind. He tried to brush them aside. This was his gentle Yuna, but doubt had taken root. He began to test her in small ways that broke his own heart, offering her food seasoned with fox-repelling mustard or asking about fox legends. Yuna sensed the new, guarded space between them immediately. Her heart fluttered like a trapped bird as she made her smiles wider, her laughter brighter, desperately hoping her love could plaster over the chasm widening beneath their feet. Whispers about Haru's strangely prescient wife spread through Kitaoka, eventually drawing a wandering ascetic monk. He preached in the village square against shapeshifters, carrying an ancient bronze mirror he claimed could reveal any being's true form under a full moon. Spooked villagers invited him to perform a cleansing ritual. Haru returned home that night with a cold unease. Yuna met him at the gate, just as the full moon crested the treetops. Suddenly, the monk stepped from the shadows. "Demon, I command you, begone!" he bellowed, thrusting the mirror into the moonlight. A beam shot from its surface, slamming toward Yuna. 900 years of instinct overrode all caution. She leapt back with supernatural speed, her kimono ripping as her suppressed power exploded outward. 9 snowy tails burst free, her ears elongated, her eyes blazed with golden light. Haru's face drained of color, not from fear, but from the horrifying realization of his doubt. As the monk began an exorcism and villagers brandished torches, Yuna faced a choice. She could vanish, but that meant abandoning Haru to a lifetime of shame. Staying meant death. She looked at Haru, and in his terrified eyes, she saw a desperate plea. Kitsune legend speaks of a final, desperate gamble. A fox spirit can sever one of its own tails, sacrificing a century of power to permanently become mortal. The wound would never heal. The tail would never regrow. Yuna recalled the elder's warning. To cut a tail is to cut your soul. But looking at Haru's anguished face, she realized love had already redrawn her soul. She turned to Haru, her voice clear over the monk's chants. I was a fox long before I was a woman. But every day with you, I chose to be your wife, now. I choose again." She raised a paw flickering with light and slashed it through the base of her 9th tail. A silent scream of white fire erupted, so bright it sent the monk's mirror crashing to the ground. When the blaze dimmed, Yuna lay crumpled on the earth, human-handed and weeping. The other 8 tails dissolved into the air. Centuries of power drained from her, collapsing into a single, fragile human heartbeat. She was weak, vulnerable, mortal. She reached a trembling hand toward Haru. The villagers, terrified, backed away. The monk declared the demon purged, and the crowd dispersed, leaving the two alone in the sudden, silent aftermath. In the days that followed, their roles reversed. Haru tended to Yuna, his hands shaking as he spoon-fed her soup and changed the bandages on a wound not entirely of the flesh. Words failed him, his heart aching with a love so profound it felt like grief. Yuna grew weaker. Without her fox vitality, her human body was fragile. An infection took root where her power used to be. A fever claimed her, and in her delirium, she spoke to shadows, whispering that the forest was calling. Haru sat by her side for days, reading sutras in a desperate, pleading prayer. One dawn, she woke lucid, her eyes clear. "I wanted to know what it felt like to be seen," she whispered, "but you taught me what it feels like to be held. That is enough." Haru pressed her hand to his tear-streaked cheek. "Stay," he begged. She managed a small, sly smile. "I traded forever for a now," she breathed. "My now is ending. Love me anyway." By twilight, her breathing thinned. As the first red maple leaf of autumn fell, Yuna died between one heartbeat and the next. No more and yet infinitely more fox than the world would ever remember. Haru buried her beneath a young peach tree, performing the rites himself as no priest would attend. He continued to teach, his manner quieter, his eyes holding a distant sorrow. Some nights he named the stars, other nights he sat in silence, tracing constellations only he knew. Years passed, and the village slowly forgot the night of the white fire. But a new legend began. Villagers swore that on certain nights, they would see a small, graceful white fox with a slightly short tail near the old scholar's gate, leaving no prints. Children began leaving rice balls for it. Haru never spoke of the fox, but every evening until the day he died, he set out a small bowl of water by the gate. He would speak softly to the gathering dusk, as if to a companion who could hear. Perhaps Yuna returned to the service of the god Inari, carrying messages between worlds. Or perhaps she simply became the profound hush between heartbeats, the quiet ache in a lover's memory, a reminder that every true love is a form of shape-shifting, and every goodbye is a piece of ourselves we sacrifice just to belong, even for a moment. The next time you see a fox slipping like a shadow through the twilight, remember Yuna's story. It's a testament to how love can make immortals crave mortality and a mortal's fleeting life feel eternal. Her choice challenges us to look at the balance between the self we are and the self we become for another. If you were faced with such a choice, to cut away a fundamental piece of your past, your power, just to keep someone close, would you do it? This isn't just an old tale. It's a mirror, reflecting the kind of legends we explore every week here on Horror Across Borders. Next on Horror Across Borders. From love to deception, the Kitsune returns. This time she wears the face of an empress, and her beauty could topple a dynasty. Coming Sunday, the Emperor's Fox, Japan's most dangerous seductress. If this story moved you, Don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more legends from around the world, because fear has no borders.